Greetings from Costa Rica and welcome to our Friday Costa Rica Real Estate Forum. Today I have some absolutely critical information for anybody in the residency investor program here in Costa Rica. I'm joined by Alonso Fonseca, and already I've misspoken. I shouldn't have said I have some urgent information. Alonso has great information. He is an attorney with Pignataro Abogados here in Costa Rica, and he's joining me out of sheer goodwill to share critical information about Law 9996 here in Costa Rica, and specifically updates to what you should be considering and the whole process for getting the tax exemption on your goods. He and I will talk about that today. I also wanted to mention we're very fortunate. We're still in an alternative studio for my Friday broadcasts. We're back up here in Plaza Tierra Pacifica, condo number 6, because the AC in my office is not working. If you are looking for a rental in Costa Rica and this condo looks pretty comfortable, they're only asking $175 per night for something this luxurious. Be sure to send us an email about renting the condo. Anyhow, when we come back, we'll let Alonso talk more about Law 9996 and other topics that are relevant for expats. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining me. Tell us about yourself, Alonso, or should I say licenciado?
I prefer Alonso. Thank you for having us, Matt. I'm really happy to be here. I've been practicing real estate and corporate law for at least 10 years now. We like to mention our boutique law firm that we give a corporate feeling to our real estate practice, and that's why you will feel that our follow-up, our attention to detail, and our response times usually make a difference from other real estate services that you may find in the area.
He is saying he's a responsive lawyer in Costa Rica, which is a pretty difficult thing to claim here because, frankly, you can find that can be one of the biggest complaints.
Definitely.
Everybody trying to invest here cannot get that responsiveness. Alonso and I are actually working together on a transaction where you had represented buyers previously in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
They're making an investment in our area. I was immediately impressed by Pignataro and Alonso's representation. In a due diligence report, they immediately demonstrated the title chain back to the origin of a property. And that's something that as a real estate agent representing buyers, I immediately appreciated. He and I have been chatting about all manner of juicy market information here in Guanacaste, and I can't wait to get his information out to the wider world of Costa Rica. Matt. Of course, I'm owner-broker of Coldwell Banker Pacific Realty. If you're thinking about moving to or investing in Guanacaste, do be sure to send me an email to matt@cbpacificrealty.com. I'm also going to put Alonso's information in the description. If you want to get in touch with him, just directly reach out to him with your questions. Let's get to some really important expat news that I did not know until we started talking earlier today. What is going on with Law 9996, that investor residency incentive program?
Sure, Matt. Everyone was expecting to see what the regulation of the law was going to come out as. And we just recently got the regulation passed and printed in the official newspaper called La Gaceta by the Immigration Authority. And the relevant news, although a little bit unfortunate, is that they have decided to require the investment of the resident to be made into his or her personal name in order to be able to apply for the import taxes exemption. I'm referring to the import taxes exemption that everyone mentioned about bringing your cars, boats, furniture, or every type of asset you may have back home and bringing it to Costa Rica. You're only going to be able to apply for the exemption if you own the Costa Rican investment into your personal name.
The reason that I sort of chuckled there, just to give everybody an idea, was that you've got Costa Ricans always, and I can imagine him explaining this in Spanish, they have the way of diminishing bad news through the use of things like phrases like it's a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah.
You might have heard a U.S. lawyer stand up and say, well, the government has really thrown a wrench in the works with X, Y, and Z. And that's a very common linguistic, wonderful thing about Costa Ricans. It's a little bit unfortunate. But the news is, to get that exemption, you are going to be able to bring down your truck, a full container of goods, tax-free into the country. Yes, you can do this because they finally passed the reglamento, the regulations. We were waiting for that for 1 full year.
I think a little bit more,
even more than a year between 9996 getting passed. They finally had the, logistics figured out, but you have to own your property in your own name according to these initial regulations.
Exactly.
So one of the things that there are frequent unfortunate legal announcements on my channel, like when COVID happened, it was basically daily. One of the things about the Costa Rica government is that you can very frequently expect change out of it. And I tell people, never panic.
Definitely.
What do you think? So the government currently, only people who are applying for their investor status residency, who bought in their personal names, can also get that exemption.
Exactly. But the good news is we're trying to fight it directly via the immigration authority, because we as a law firm, and this is obviously my personal opinion as a lawyer, we feel that it is contradictory to give the resident status to a foreign investor that has made the investment through a corporation, but not give this exemption to this same type of investment. This is a contradiction in the law, and according to our constitution, and this is something we always mention our clients, Costa Rica is a great place for foreign investment because we do not make any difference between nationals and foreigners regarding personal investments in Costa Rica. So we feel there is a first problem there in the regulation. The second good news is that we have a really close access to the immigration authority because we deal with them on a daily basis. And speaking with them via telephone and via email is a little bit different than reading the regulation itself.
Okay.
So what they have been telling us is that the entity that is going to read your application for the exemption at the end of the day is the tax authority, not the immigration authority. So they might see only the final paper where you apply for the exemption form, signing as a resident, where you already have a resident cedula number assigned to you.
Yep.
And they might not even request or try to find out where does this residency status comes from.
Yeah.
So there might be a window there right now, but even though we're trying to fight the regulation to make this small change and make it, as we feel, a little bit more fair for everyone.
Yeah. So 2 questions. Let me do the easier one first. Do you think, what sort of timeline when you're working on a change to this? Is it something that immediately in 2 months the government might see the light and quickly just file a modification and amend the law? You think it's that sort of thing, or is this going to be sort of a years-long slog of a fight?
No, the usual road that as a lawyer you take when you're trying to fight a situation like this is try to discuss directly with the authority to see if they amend the regulation by themselves, which should be an easier process than draft the whole regulation. So we shouldn't be waiting for another year.
Yeah.
And the second road, if they do not understand the position as we do, is we go directly to the Sala Constitucional in Costa Rica, which will usually grant you a resolution on the case in about 6 months to a year, where you get a final decision on whether the regulation is contradictory, discriminatory or not.
Sala Constitucional, that's the Supreme Court.
I would say,
Sala Cuarta.
The Supreme Court, the Costa Rican Supreme Court regarding fundamental rights
This is the great thing about Costa Rica. It's a country of 5.2 million people. You know, yes, we're talking about a huge bureaucracies and stuff that can seem intimidating, but in the grand scheme of things, we're talking only one more, you know, a friend of Alonso's is the person actually looking at these regulations. So it's very accessible, and yeah, this kind of stuff can be frustrating all the time in Costa Rica, but you see frequently.
Yeah.
And you know, my next question was going to be, do you think that the law, was this just an oversight? The legislature passed it with certain broad language that they hadn't even considered the fact that a lot of these investors were buying their property through corporations? Or was it that they specifically said, we want to start, you know, was there any logic behind this issue?
The bill itself made no difference.
Okay.
Regardless of the form that you choose to make your investment.
Okay.
Okay. The whole thing erupted in the drafting of the regulation itself, where the immigration authority did not allow the participation of many actors of the civil society. So when the regulation passed, they made this announcement in the attorney's bar offices in San Jose.
Okay.
And the number one question that everyone asked and the number one topic that got the waters a little bit agitated there was this issue. Because every single law firm that deals with foreign direct investment is understanding the regulation position the same way that we are understanding it.
Okay. Absolutely. So it's not probably only your firm that's going to be trying to get this changed.
Definitely not, I would say.
It's a group.
Yeah.
Great. And that's how a lot of business happens in Costa Rica. You know, especially there's this detachment between the actual legislating mechanism and the people who know the logistics on the ground. Yeah. The spirit of the law was to help people, you know, was to encourage more foreigners, give you a free container of goods.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, they don't really care and don't plan to care about whether people own through corporations or not.
Definitely not.
One of the rumors I wanted to address, you know, at this time, I actually heard in my office, people were saying, oh, in order to do the investor status residency, you're going to have to own your property through your own name. And that's false, according to Alonso.
That's false. Yes, 100%. The law hasn't changed, and there has been no difference made into what structure the foreign direct investor chooses to use.
So you can still own through a corp and apply for residency. You are just still waiting on the full guarantee that you can bring in your goods.
With the exemption. And I would always recommend the client to fully discuss with their attorney which structure works the better, because it doesn't make sense to bring the same recipe to everyone, like one size fits all. That is certainly not the case. It depends on what the client is trying to do with the investment and more details.
Just to review, and I honestly can't remember, the exemption is for how many containers? Or like, what's the number of things that I can bring down?
I cannot recall specifically how many containers, but I remember that it contained at least 2 of the biggest items, like 2 cars, 2 boats, even 2 planes. I remember that.
Wow.
And the list of the smaller assets, it's way bigger. So you can bring, like, I'm more or less saying your entire house to Costa Rica. If it fits in a container, you're allowed to bring that.
I'm very glad I had you on so you could answer a pressing question for me then. Will I be able to do boat and plane, or should I just stick with bringing both the jets down?
Exactly. You might choose to bring...
mix and match?
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent.
At least one of each item you're allowed to bring.
Yeah.
There's not a difference between you either have to choose your car or your boat, or you can bring both of them.
If you're a private plane owner and considering investing in Guanacaste, my email address is matt@cbpacificrealty.com. It'll be a pleasure to help you. I can even unload your bags at the airport if you'd like, provide chauffeur services, and we'll get some security detail lined up as well for your visit.
Definitely.
Alonso Fonseca of Pignataro Abogados. Try and say that 5 times fast. Pignataro is joining me out of sheer goodwill. His law firm is opening an office where?
We're located at Flamingo, right at the Flamingo Triangle, where there is a division where you take the road either to Flamingo Beach or to Potrero Beach. We're right down at that corner, diagonally to the National Bank, which is a huge reference in the area.
Absolutely. They're going to have a grand opening with free steak, lobster, what else? Entertainment.
Yeah.
I think you've booked a couple major international bands to play at this opening. I know they're opening their office right there, and I was talking to him. You know, Flamingo is one of the fastest growing areas. You had some comments on the market I found interesting in Guanacaste. You know, you're an aspiring sort of franchisee, or you're expanding into this area. How do you see the Guanacaste real estate market overall? You know, you've been dealing in transactions here. Where do you see the market sort of moving right now?
The biggest comment that we usually make when we're discussing the current market is the difference between the pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and the state that we are now. And what we have been finding more often than none is that there is a difference in the price where the seller is sitting and where the buyer is coming from. There's usually a gap that is not as close as it used to be a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. In that currently we're starting to see a disconnect.
Exactly.
Sellers are standing here, buyers are only willing to offer this much.
Definitely, yeah.
That is so applicable to the stuff that I was even dealing with this morning. I mean, you've got the conditions in Guanacaste, and welcome to this market where you will represent sellers who will have a property that's sat on the market for multiple years, and a price reduction is not on their radar. To their mind, the right buyer has just not been contacted yet.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, it very quickly becomes this detachment. And what I would say, you know, we had emotional excitement. You even referred to sort of seeing bubble conditions in this area. We had emotional, really sort of fraught buying interest post-pandemic.
Yeah.
2021 and 22 were wonderful years
certainly.
For realtors, for real estate attorneys.
Certainly.
It was, you know, every day you opened your email, there were clients you couldn't even handle. There was business happening.
Yeah.
The emotion is gone, for sure.
Definitely. The rush is gone.
The rush is done, and now buyers are looking more level-headedly at the actual market value of properties.
Certainly.
And instead of, I'll pay $1.6 million for a 3-bedroom house just because it's the only one available, you're getting, no, I see 4 $1.6 million houses that are sitting on the market.
Yes.
They're all roughly the same. They have their different pros and cons.
Yes.
But they're sitting, and buyers now, if they don't want to necessarily get into those bubbly prices, can definitely sit.
And that's bringing, I would say, more, I'm not sure if the word is educated, but at least more picky clients that are really trying to find and get into the details of each property.
Yeah.
And this is where they find valuable services, both by brokers, by topographers, by attorneys, by everyone in the chain, where they get into the details to find out exactly what's going on with the property.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that we were talking about is, you know, in this market, now that buyers have a bit more control, don't hesitate to ask your realtor to provide you actual data to support the price of an investment. Really, one of the biggest faults that I find with agents in this area in general can be their motivation to complete a sale rather than present their client with information to empower their decision, which is the goal on Costa Rica, Matt. And if you haven't done so, subscribe. They don't want a deal to fall apart. You know, they've got data that might say a condo is only, you know, the last 5 have only closed at this number, and a buyer would be paying $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 more, and they would rather just say buy the condo. It's the only one on the market. Someone else is going to buy it. Do this soon and add urgency. That game was going incredibly well in 22 and 2021, where people felt, the buyers felt that emotion as well.
Yes.
Now the narrative isn't there anymore,
No.
and you know, with more and more data available, your realtor should be able to help you make decisions. I help buyers look completely objectively at real estate in the Playa Flamingo area. I have one exclusive listing in that market, so I love being able to give people objective advice. If you're interested in looking at Flamingo or Potrero or one of the many areas within an hour of the Liberia International Airport, Alonso is going to be back on my channel in just 48 hours. We'll be publishing our video on development in Guanacaste. He's got incredible information about water and some other issues that we need to talk about specifically, title chain research, etc., that I really want to emphasize and pick his brain even further. So watch out for further videos with Alonso Fonseca of Pignataro Abogados. Thanks very much for joining us for this Friday Real Estate Forum. We'll be back again live next Friday for our Real Estate Forum number 16.
Awesome.
Thanks again,
Thank you,
Alonso.
Matt.
Really appreciate you
Take care.
joining me.
Thank you.